Hey guys, Drifter here. I've got something overtly negative to say about Black Ops 6, which is that I've noticed Black Ops 6 has very little in the way of audio cues. More specifically, the footstep audio is almost non-existent in this game, and I have wildly mixed feelings about this as a guy who has complained in various years about footsteps being too loud, too quiet, occlusion issues, headset issues, all sorts of stuff. And it's so genuinely weird that I don't know if it was an accident or a feature. So let's start off with some basic facts, or facts at least as to the best of my ability to observe, converse with friends, and reference the community and YouTube comments and Reddit and stuff. And the first fact is, there appears to be almost no footstep audio in Black Ops 6. It's a game with a lot of small maps where people are constantly sprinting in all directions with omni movement, and they're jumping and climbing and mantling, knee sliding, diving, splashing in the pool, and yet I almost never hear anybody running up on me. Yes, I will admit that there are footsteps, and you can hear them maybe if you mute everything on Discord and like listen in really closely and crank your volume and focus hard, but they're incredibly difficult to hear, and even then, under ideal circumstances, I rarely hear footsteps until the enemy is literally standing on top of me, probably trying to knife me. So if you're going to need to listen to footsteps, you're going to need headsets that are extremely loud, in which case I would like to recommend the Logitech G-A50X headset. These bad boys are the best on the market. You can actually listen to Xbox, PlayStation, PC, and Bluetooth mobile all at the same time with a custom audio mixer, and with an equalizer to kind of crank the highs and lows and basses and make the footsteps more audible. You can check that out, link down there below. Code Drifter will save you 5% off. It's one of the best console headsets on the market. So even if you have nice headsets like mine, you can play with equalizer settings. You can do a bunch of things to make the footsteps more audible. But that being said, using audio cues for spatial awareness is still going to be very difficult in Black Ops 6. This would probably be a good place in the commentary to add on that I very infrequently get audio for flash or stun grenades. If I get hit by a flashbang or a stun, instead of having that little splash and then the bing that kind of goes down, usually just complete silence from the game. I think, did my headsets run out of battery? If it's a flashbang, I'm like, did my monitor just fail? You know, there's optimization issues. Or if I get stunned and I don't hear the stun go off, I just kind of stop and I'm like, oh my god, did my controller run out of batteries? Or did I yank the USB and unplug it? Like, what's going on here? That doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes I know when I've been flashed and stunned, but sometimes it just kind of doesn't work, and it leaves me like weirdly hanging there wondering if I'm having a technical problem. Beyond this, I also wanted to point out that the score streaks don't make a lot of noise. In the past, they had very loud, distinct sounds. The Warthog would go as it goes down, and you would know exactly where it is, the path, and when it's coming. The score streaks we have, not particularly audible, and a similar but less important story is true for the deployable equipment and the grenades. Generally speaking, Black Ops 6 just does not seem to be built with audio cues in mind, and I'm not sure why, because Treyarch's always done a pretty good job of this. Generally speaking, the faster the gameplay a game has, the less you're going to need footstep audio. This is true in crazy games like Hyperscape or Apex, or games where you just fly all over the map. Those games have audio, by the way, but the footstep audio is typically less important. And in previous Call of Duty games with advanced movement or simply faster movement, the community criticized the developers for having jetpacks and boots and sliding and stuff too loud, because those audio cues would penalize players for engaging with the new movement systems. There was no point in sliding or using your jetpack when everybody could hear it and would just turn and beam you, and I think the dev team kind of wanted to avoid this scenario for Black Ops 6 and make movement in general much less punishing. I think that they wanted players to have less drawbacks to their movement, so they would be more likely to experiment and engage with this and get used to the system, at least in beta. So there's a real possibility that the lack of footsteps and lack of audio cues in Black Ops 6 is a deliberate design decision on the part of the developers that is geared toward freeing up more advanced movement. This doesn't, however, explain the weird broken flash and stun thing, and there is an alternative negative possibility, which is that the audio design could just be bad, or that there could be some kind of massive oversight. We've had issues in the past with footstep occlusion going through objects being broken, and there have been a number of Call of Duty games where footsteps were only audible on a certain level floor, or at an extremely high volume, and in a number of years I have complained that I have to turn the volume up on my headset so loud that the gunshots sound realistic and I begin to go deaf from explosions while trying to listen in for the soft footsteps. That's sort of known as the realistic audio balance. I shoot a lot of guns in real life, and I'll have you know, if you're shooting a machine gun, you're not going to hear somebody walking up behind you. Even if you have ear protection, all you're probably going to hear is explosions and ringing. So that is very realistic, and this has a tendency to happen as a sort of decision for realism, or when the audio engine is being designed by a person or group of persons that use very expensive headsets. This is coming from a guy who's, promoting very expensive headsets here. We'll loop back around that. But if you're, say, an audio engineer at Treyarch and you're in your booth in your soundproof room and you've got your $4,000 headsets on, hooked up to all the extreme studio equipment, you're probably used to listening very loudly. Most audio engineers that I'm familiar with listen to the audio very, very loud. They're very comfortable with that. They're using very high quality equipment. So yeah, in the studio with the $4,000 headsets and the proper mixer and everything going on and 3D sound working perfectly and, the volume blasting here, it probably has a really good, realistic sounding mix, but that doesn't work for everybody else. It can actually be a very bad experience for other people, and this is something that I run into in my little job, just making content here on YouTube. When editing for YouTube videos, I almost never listen to the sound on my fancy headsets, unless I'm just very confident in it, or perhaps it's very simple. I literally went out of my way to buy cheap, crappy, old Dell speakers and beat-up speakers, just things with really low fidelity audio. Or I would upload a test audio sample and listen back on mobile so that I would hear what the audio sounds like on the minimum possible speakers, like what I would sound like on somebody that's got a bad TV speaker, a bad computer speaker, or just a cheap phone with a little mono speaker. I need to know how that sounds because that's realistically what the majority of people watching my videos are going to be hearing. I think it's like 70% of people on mobile, and they just have that one tiny little speaker on the phone. I need to know how that sounds on mobile. And this is a very easy oversight to make. I've run into this problem amusingly with, I think, every single editor that I've ever worked with. So if any of my editors are watching this video, this is not a knock to you. Every single person I've ever worked with has made this mistake. Friends have made it. I've made it. It's one of the things that I would teach people back in the day in my YouTube 101 series. It is very, very easy to make this mistake. And I make it even still. There are days where I get lazy and I just don't take my headsets off and I make that mistake and balance the audio improperly. So there is a possibility that something similar happened at Treyarch, that they tested this game only for the highest fidelity of equipment and didn't really see what it's like on normal equipment or in normal scenarios. And it's also possible that their core audience is a bunch of sweaty gamers that have their headsets cranked up to absolutely maximum volume anyway. So maybe they don't care or it doesn't matter. I'm usually the guy who's all for quieter footsteps so that it's easier for me to run up on people. And usually in the games, I don't like the loud explosions. They kind of hurt my ears and make them ring. I've got sensitive little baby ears, right? But I gotta say, there does need to be some kind of footstep audio. And I feel that it's perhaps even more needed in Black Ops 6 because there needs to be some degree of 3D spatial awareness with the audio. This is a game where people are flying all over the map so fast, I have a hard time keeping track of them. So fast, the radar isn't the world's most useful thing. The maps are multi-layered, a couple of them. There's different surfaces enemies can run on, a couple of different movements and sounds they can make. And when you add all this together, the radar is not the most useful tool. So having 3D spatial audio to have some idea of where all the people are around you is, in my opinion, very, very valuable, especially with all this advanced movement. So I kind of wish that Treyarch would boost the Footstep audio at least somewhat so that I have at least one additional sensory apparatus in my toolbox to detect enemy movements and positions. It helps me play the game. I don't need it super loud. I would probably even be happier with just turning those gun sound effects down, which would make the footsteps more audio, or even the sounds when you get hit, the splats when you take bullets, outrageously loud, and they drown out everything else. So there's definitely some improvements that could be made here. I'm not super worried about it. I've seen enough people complaining that I have a feeling they'll tweak this a little bit before final launch, but I just wanted to add my opinion, and I'll ask yours. Are you guys hearing footsteps out there? Because if you are, please let me know, and let me know how, because I'm struggling here, okay? Alright guys, that's all for this video. If you enjoyed, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Drifter out!